As Congress gets ready to vote on a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, a group in Lansing rallied to support it. Organizing for America Michigan met at the Capitol today to highlight parts of the law they say are helping people living in our state. Many local homeowners were also there to share their stories. Organizers say it's not only people in Michigan who will benefit, though.
Local business owners joining Organizing for America for the news conference today to show support for America's new health care provisions, which went into effect January 1st.
In response to Republicans vying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, this grassroots group, Organizing for America, is making one phone call after another.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to see if you could call Mrs. Elmer's office and just let her know that you stand in support of the health insurance reform that we passed.
Members of the president's grassroots group, Organizing for America, urge Representative Renee Elmers not to repeal the law.
Demonstrators are planning a rally to draw attention to new health care provisions that went into effect this month. Volunteers with Organizing for America and other community leaders are trying to raise awareness of the Affordable Care Act, which went into effect on January 1st. The Affordable Care Act helps with insurance costs for seniors on Medicare and young adults as well.
Julie Anderson's daughter needs meds costing $400 a month, and under the health care law, she can now remain on her mother's insurance.
I was so happy because I wouldn't have been able to afford to keep her on her medication, and it's vital for her to be able to live.
Supporters of the Affordable Care Act gathered this morning in Sioux Falls in hopes their voices will be heard in Washington.
We want to send a message to Representative Noem urging her to vote against repeal of health reform. We want to make sure she knows how the Affordable Care Act is benefiting South Dakotans and how they will be hurt by repeal.
It is clear that members of Congress, including the two South Dakotans who have announced for repeal, are setting themselves up above the average South Dakotan.
Volunteers with Organizing for America called constituents of Scott Desjardins and Chuck Fleischman. They urged folks to call their congressman and ask them to vote against the repeal. If the Affordable Care Act is repealed, young adults up to age 26 would no longer be able to stay on their parents' insurance, and children with pre-existing conditions could be denied coverage.
Mary Bishop says before the Affordable Health Care Act, she'd been denied insurance coverage because insurers deemed her osteoporosis to be a pre-existing condition. But with the reform law in place, she says she's been able to buy insurance with plans that include preventative screenings and care. Bishop spoke during this news conference held by Organizing for America and Utah Democratic lawmakers.
Today, Organizing for America California, along with Democrats of the Desert, held a news conference. Local residents shared their personal stories of why they say it's needed.
Organizing for America Florida will be holding a news conference at 1, urging U.S. Representative Allen West to vote against the repeal.
A local group is rallying to keep the law in place. Organizing for America volunteers is holding a phone bank at 12:30 today, and they're calling on Republican Congressman Tim Scott to defend the health care legislation.
Organizing for America volunteers will hold a phone bank to thank Representative Cedric Richmond for his previous support of the historic health care bill and ask him to vote against the repeal. The bill to repeal the legislation would increase the national debt by trillions, subjecting millions of Americans to discriminatory practices by health care insurance companies.